What is going on, everybody? Great video in store for you, regardless of whatever level of fitness you're in, or especially if you're a veteran, total gym, Science Men's training, or great flex like I'm sitting on, user, or even if you're a veteran gym user, because some of the things I'm going to be going over with form recommendations and some technique stuff can really be applied across the board on various resistance training modalities. Now, what I'm doing here, what's not clear already in the title, is I'm going to take my friend Stevie Richards from Stevie Richards Fitness, great YouTube channel, I interviewed him before. He's a great friend off the air. We've been talking ever since, for a while, ever since the initial interview. Awesome guy, check out his channel, does a lot of the same stuff we're doing here. He recently got a total gym sent to him, and I was very happy he did, because I kept talking to him for a while, like, you of all people should have a total gym based on his number of injuries. He's got a spinal fusion. He shared this openly. He literally almost died. He's still in the recovery from a spinal infection. You wouldn't know it though if you saw him. He looks awesome. And he's also trying to downsize his equipment. He's been eyeing a total gym for a while. So he recently picked one up a couple days ago, did a first impressions video. And I said, hey, do you mind if I use some footage from this and kind of give some critiques and recommendations? And I think it would help some people out, especially you yourself as well. And he said, yeah, sure, no problem. What you're gonna see from Stevie, honestly, is to be expected across the board. As I said many times, there's kind of somewhat of a skill to be learned with this. And I'm never gonna say like, some exercise is bad or not good. I usually say there's a better way of doing it. Hopefully I convey that here in some explanations of why I kind of tweak things a certain way. Certainly you gotta kind of work with whatever works for you. But I will say that I have a number of people who watch the channel and made tons of videos about these same things we're gonna get into, but I still find they'll gravitate back to these original patterns. And I see this even in the Total Gym infomercials, even in like their exercise guides and stuff like that. I think there's better ways to really maximize this machine, especially those particular exercises or body parts you're trying to work. So we're going to jump right into it. Please like, share, subscribe, check out Stevie's channel, very similar content, reviewing a lot of low footprint content. He's trying to go more minimalist as well, so I think you guys will like his channel. And hopefully we'll do a little more kind of little collaborations back and forth as he kind of continues on his total gym journey. Very first thing I would tell Stevie to check out, like I tell a lot of you guys, is to pick up a swivel. Now I'm sitting on a great flex, and this puts a little more extension in the cable, so I'm gonna take this off for the sake of the video to replicate some of the stuff that Stevie was doing. But pick up a pair of swivels. Stevie, or any of you guys out there that are new to the total gym, you guys will definitely thank me for that. I'll link these down below. It just makes a lot of exercise a little more smooth and also puts less wear and tear on the cables. But I'm gonna take these off for the sake of the video. He's sitting on a kind of a higher incline to start with. You could say maybe you could start a little bit lower, but the very first thing that Stevie jumps into, and I will say he does drop it down a little bit later in the video. The very first thing he jumps into is just a row. He basically is starting to row like this. Now, I'm gonna try and exaggerate a couple things I was seeing. It's very subtle. His feet are off the ground. You certainly can do that. All sorts of ways to be seated doing this, but there's a couple little subtle things he's doing. One is that this makes sense because this is a basic, back row. You're just sitting here and you're rowing. It makes basic sense to do this. Those of you guys in the channel know that my big preference on a default row, because you can single arm, all sorts of stuff, would be a cross grip like this and going like that. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. Stevie did an excellent job as far as, I think he said, like pinching his shoulder blades and sitting up nice and tight, nice and tall with good posture, so that's definitely good. He wasn't just slouching over. But the main thing he was doing, why I don't like this regular row, is that it causes your shoulder to kind of do, even if there's good posture, stuff like this, where you're kind of yanking this way. Again, this is an example of not a bad exercise. You're still gonna get results doing this. I'm still gonna be working my biceps as I'm kind of rowing that, also my lats by having this shoulder extension coming back this way. But what I do miss out on are some of those middle to back muscles like rhomboids, traps, and just basically the range of motion is kind of choppy. So instead of just doing this, where my lats are kind of lengthened and then kind of shortened here, I can start from out here, and then when I do this row from like this, I'm getting a greater lat stretch, bigger range of motion in my shoulder, therefore in my lats as well. But then also when I'm doing that row, instead of having, if there was like an arrow here and I'm pulling and my shoulders are pointing this way and just kind of pulling this way, now I can actually, if I turn around, I might be able to see it. As I row, I'm really kind of retracting my shoulders back a little bit, and these muscles in the middle here, the rhomboids and traps, get more of a workout. Or very simply, I would just say, if you're in a cross grip row, you'll just notice you're gonna feel just a greater range of motion in your back. So that's something I would just say right away initially. Okay, the next thing he goes to is the chest press, right? Logical thing to do. And this, couple things. One, he starts going off, kind of sitting off like this. Actually, I'll do exactly what he's doing. He kind of was like this, and doing a press from this position. Again, still a valid exercise. You're doing that push. You're gonna be working your chest, you're gonna be working your triceps, gonna be working the deltoids. Regardless, I'm just saying, is there kind of a better way of doing this? So a couple things I would say is that I think he already starts to realize this might be a little uncomfortable for a period of time. This is still something you could do. It actually kind of works your core, kind of sitting at this angle a little bit. But if you kind of engage yourself, either leaning with a slight lean or sitting upright, I'm not gonna say to always do that, but the point is I would just experiment with just kind of leaning into it a little bit. This is a little scary, a little bit risky, but you also have your feet here. And by also having your feet in the ground, you can do some forced reps. This is still a valid thing to do. It's just that for some people, especially if you got like back issues, this might put unnecessary stress on your back. So that's just something subtle about where your feet are and just body positioning. I tend to like want to be a little more of a forward lean, so I'm kind of a little more engaged with that. It'll also kind of allow you to get more of like a stretch into that chest press. The next thing, and again, there's a rhyme and reason to do it this way, but if you kind of have the straps over your arms like this, and I'll just kind of go with my feet in the ground for right now, and I do this press, this is still, it's a little noisy with the straps hanging from the Great Flex. You can still work your chest. This is still great. And I know some people actually prefer this, but there are some people that say this just kind of aggravates my arms, and I do find that some people say this doesn't work their chest as much. So my only thing would be try to, at the very least, try this underhand grip. What I also like about this is by having this cable going underneath the arm, not only does it get out of your way, but again, I get more of a stretch and range of motion as I do this exercise. So instead of kind of, if they're on top here, I kind of want to start short and it makes me kind of more closed in like this. If the cables are going underneath, then I can get a nice open chest, really open. This is called horizontal abduction at the shoulder. And less more range of motion essentially with horizontal adduction at the shoulder as they come in. Those are just fancy words for just doing this basically at the shoulder. So that's something else minor. So just thinking about trying the cable grip underneath here instead of here, and then try to be a little bit more engaged, just kind of in a ready position so you feel that nice stretch at the start position. And then Stevie tests out the waters in a chest fly. Again, I think I said it's the start, but it goes without saying, this is his first time just doing literally any of these exercises. So this is nothing on him at all whatsoever, but it makes sense. Yeah, let's see what a chest fly feels like at this position. And when you kind of go like this with nothing on there, this is really tough. It's almost too tough. I think he does drop it down at a certain point in time, but what I like with the chest fly, especially if you got shoulder issues, this puts a lot of stress on the shoulders, especially for chest fly, is to not only drop it down, but then having maybe some assistance or having your feet here to now guide this fly. So this is a nice controlled fly. I don't know if you can really see it in the camera, but the big thing I'm doing is I'm using my feet to control that tension. And this just feels really good. And by having that control, I actually can bring my hands down lower versus I got no control. I'm really having to go up here to use my shoulders to really help support me out of that fly versus my chest. All right, then Stevie went into bicep curls, and I believe he was kind of like this, kind of doing a curl almost like that. And this kind of makes sense too. I say this even with like TRX or suspension trainers. When your body feels like it's leaning back like this, and you say, like even if you had a TRX straps, and you said do a row, your body thinks like path of least resistance. So it thinks even if you're trying to do bicep curls, it kind of wants you to kind of almost do like a mini row. So notice I'm using some shoulder and not just isolating the bicep. So again, Stevie was kind of here, and he's definitely still doing a curl. I'm probably exaggerating more than what he actually was doing, but he's doing a curl just like this. And if you actually kind of see what I'm doing with my elbow extending and flexing, I'm really only getting, if I had a dumbbell equivalent, it would be like doing kind of like that much work or range of motion. So a couple things I could do is I'm still sitting up nice and tall, and he did a great job doing that. I'm leaning back. I can even lean forward if I wanted to, but I'm extending my elbows out in front of me, and just my elbows are fully extended and they're fully flexed. So you can just see that difference from this range of motion of extension and flexion at the shoulder. Now, if you wanted to, sometimes I will do things like, kind of like I call this, I think I called this the sweep technique, where I'll sweep back and then curl. The main thing is I'm focusing on full flexion and extension. So versus instead of doing here, it's kind of choppy. Here, I got a nice full flexion. And you could even keep the elbows in if you wanted to and still do that. But the only thing is then you kind of lose out on that full extension at the end. So try that little subtle adjustment there. And then he does another facing the tower arm exercise. He does the tricep press down. He's got a neutral grip like this. And I believe he drove his elbows back to start, his shoulders back into extension. Then he's kind of repping it like that. I believe it was something like this. All right, and again, you're still gonna work your triceps. It's just, is there a better way of maybe doing that? What we're basically doing, if we had, again, a tricep or a dumbbell equivalent, we're really only getting about, like, that's the rep of tricep extensions. And if I was doing a cable press down, you guys would probably say, hey, you're not going all the way up more. That's the thing, trying to get into a position, and it's easier said than done because of the nature of this machine, to really allow the fact that we want to get more flexion here at the elbow and then more extension. So basically more range of motion. So some things I would do, there's other exercises. You could even do like a kickback from this position. I go on my knees sometimes. This is very iffy, but I just want to show you what I'm talking about. You can see this difference. My elbows are flexed, elbows are pinned at the side, and I'm going to extend here. So you can see this greater range of motion that I'm working with and a more concentrated range of motion on the triceps versus if I'm back here, I'm already kind of in an awkward position and I'm only getting kind of partial reps. I will say it hits a different kind of area, so I would definitely say with something that Stevie did there, you could tweak that a little bit more. Now, if you don't want to go on your legs like that, your knees, my mic might kind of cancel out here. You can lay on your stomach, and this really isolates your triceps in a good way. So I'll just show it to you here. Okay, so you can see that, just a little bit more flexion and extension, bigger range of motion there. He had another one where he's back here, his head was off the glide board, which I'll say right away, we're just gonna feel a little uncomfortable. And I think in his brain, he was thinking like, you know, skull crushers, type of stuff like that. Like, yeah, which kind of makes sense that you'd want to go like this, but I think he was doing, you know, something like this. Again, totally valid. You're definitely gonna be working your triceps. What I would do, first suggestion is, let's just rest that head so we're not straining our neck that way. And if you really wanted to still do what Stevie was doing, you could do that. But again, we got this same problem where I'm only going about that much of tricep work and that flexion extension there. But what I can do now is I can just start like this, flex my elbows, so they're really close together to start. Elbows are pinned at the side. I also like using the glide board because it just forces you in good kind of form and posture, isolates your triceps a little more. And just pressing down either straight like this or straight like this. In both instances, you can see that I just got more range of motion versus if I was up here, I don't got a whole lot. Still something you could do though, to definitely mix it up though, don't get me wrong. Okay, and then the last thing I saw Stevie do, and this was a video he sent me. I actually want to show you guys a Total Gym Fit because I don't have the weight bar, but one thing is, has one downside about a great flex, you don't have the weight bar. Not so much because of the weight, but because I actually can prop my feet on something. So he does this cable rotation like you guys are seeing. It's a great exercise. Still gonna be feeling it if you're doing the version he's doing it. I'm just gonna give you guys some little tweaks. So one thing is if I had the weight bar here, I actually can prop my feet up on here so that can help support me, which is great. But one thing is if Stevie he had this hand on first and he's rotating, let's say to this side, and he's rotating kind of like this, okay? If I got my hand like this, if my head follows my hand, I get a greater range of motion in that spinal rotation. But the other thing is the hand makes a difference. This goes back to kind of proprioceptors and your brain spinal cord connection here, or your mind muscle connection when I say that too. If my hand's like this, your body wants to think pushing. If this hand goes on first, the side I'm rotating to, and then this hand goes over it, you'll feel more like an anchor point on that oblique side that you're working. So my two suggestions if you're doing cable rotations are, whatever side you're rotating to, that hand goes on first, and also the head always follows the hand. And if you got the weight bar option, that works out great to kind of post you up so you don't feel like you're kind of sliding off the machine, especially if you start putting on some external weight. That is it though, guys. Really wanted to make this video also to kind of plug Stevie and what he's doing. Again, he's got one of these machines. I'm really looking forward to the results he's going to be seeing on this thing in the future. If you guys want more information about this, I made a somewhat condensed favorite exercise list that kind of goes over a little bit of this form function stuff. I try and be as brief as I can, but even among the stuff I just showed you, I could go in way more detail if we wanted to. I know you guys like stuff somewhat quick and right to the point, so I do my best. With that said though, I'm gonna stop here and I'll see you guys on the next video. Check out Stevie Richards' video or fitness channel, and I'll see you guys in the future.